Top 5 scary things caught on camera. Witches. The Witch of Del Rey. Rose Veres was a Hungarian immigrant who ran a boarding house in the Del Rey neighborhood of Detroit, Michigan. Neighbors believed that Rose was a witch and possessed magical powers. Everyone in her boarding house feared her and refused to look her in the eye. But the story gets even creepier, because 12 men, possibly more, passed away under mysterious circumstances while living in Rose's boarding house. Rose was arrested in 1931, and newspapers dubbed her, quote, the Witch of Del Rey. In this next video, a man who claims to be a policeman says he was filming outside the famous boarding house of the Witch of Del Rey when this happened.
I was on one of my recent calls. There was a domestic disturbance over in Del Rey, and it turned out to be resolved by the time I got there. But some people yell, and then they stop yelling. By the time I got there, I noticed there were some peculiar noises coming from a neighboring house. Please bear with me. I'm not professional at this, but there were some stills and footage I took.
We're here on Medina Street. What's that? Something on. The house appears abandoned. A lot about fires, and this looks like an isolated incident coming from within the home. Not very old.
I had no warrant, and I certainly did not want to enter if you see for yourself what I saw.
Hello! Hello!
On the force, you learn to trust your gut, to trust yourself, and I was jeopardizing my safety. But the sounds I heard, and now you've heard, I cannot explain them.
So is this the ghost of the famous Witch of Del Rey taking a quick look out the window? Or is it all just a hoax? You decide. Cabin in the Woods. A Twitter poster named Greg claims that after his grandfather passed away, he inherited an isolated lake cabin located deep in the woods. He decided to stay there for the winter while trying to sell the house. But Greg says that someone soon began to leave strange things outside his home, including this odd wooden symbol that was left hanging on his doorknob. He says that soon after, he began to find more of the strange trinkets around his property. And late one night, while Greg was wandering around outside, he saw this. A strange woman, bald, and seemingly with only pale skin where her eyes should be, was standing in the darkness outside his home. Greg says that he could only describe the woman as a witch, but he doesn't know who she was or why she was there. Now, of course, most people believe Greg's story to be yet another Twitter ARG or internet horror fiction, but many of his 100,000 Twitter followers believe his story to be something more. And of course, Greg claims that his story is 100% real. So is this Twitter tale fact or fiction? Is this the true story of a lonely mountain cabin and what could be a mysterious witch in the woods? Or is it just another intricate Twitter creepypasta? You decide. By the way, you can read more of Greg's story on his Twitter at Gregory88. Bruja in the basement. In a very strange video from Colombia, a family claims that they are tormented by the spirit of a bruja or witch who haunts their home. In this clip, they are woken in the middle of the night by bizarre moans coming from downstairs.
Son las 1:30 de la mañana. Estoy otra vez acá en la casa. Están molestando como siempre. Esta vez quise grabar. Aquí está la Marianita. Voy a despertar a Junior. Juniorcito.
Mami, señora.
Papi, levántese que es que otra vez están molestando. Otra vez están molestando acá en la puerta. Vamos. Entonces, pero grabemos esto. Cristian está acá abajo del... Cristian, ven, tus compañeros estén pendientes que otra vez están molestando en la puerta. Están molestando acá. Vamos, Dile a Joanita.
Mami, ¿te oye? ¿Te escucha?
Mami, pero que van a abrir allá.
Mami,
por favor, cuidado con la niña, por favor, por Dios. Dios mío, Señor, guarda, cubre tu sangre preciosa, Señor, por favor.
Bueno, abuelita.
Mira, ¿se están escuchando?
Mami, hablamos por la puerta, ¿sí?
Pero quiero la nene de la mano. No soy por eso. El hombre de Jesús. Que tenga la lista ahí, tranquilo.
¿Qué te diga? No te vas a salir, por favor.
Ven, tenga la penilla lista. Cristian, quédate atrás. Cristian, aquí de nosotros.
Quede calmada.
Déjame bajar la cocina.
Mami, te oyes abajo.
Mami, abajo. Sí. Cójala. Yo no pise. Pero hay una niña.
La niña, no
Cristian.
hay subirse algo, nosotros andamos en la bolita ahorita.
Vamos a bajar por el sótano. Agarro con la permisa.
El nombre de Jesús. No, espere, yo no quiero bajar solo.
Bájale todo. Baje, que le damos la luz.
¿No entra el propio?
Sí,
Mami, está hacia allá, mire.
Se le acercó la cámara. No está por allá.
Vamos.
Qué
peligro eso.
No, por eso voy a acercarla. En el nombre de Jesús. Ya déjenos en paz.
En el nombre de Jesús. Vamos a ver arriba.
¿Qué es eso?
As is probably evident from the potato video quality, this clip has been passed around the internet to the point that the original source is no longer known. So unfortunately, there's no follow-up and no information on what happened to the family. But what's your opinion? Does it look like this family is being haunted by the spirit of a witch? Or is it all just a hoax and some fake hysteria? Witch's Walkway. Mike from the YouTube channel The In Vegas Style set up a motion-activated security camera outside his home after neighbors told him that some suspicious teens were skulking around his house while he was at work. Sure enough, he caught video of someone who seemed to be casing his home, repeatedly walking up to his house to check things out. Mike posted the video online and notified his neighbors to be on the lookout. Luckily, everything worked out, and there was never a break-in or any property vandalism. Now, cut to 2 years later. Mike still has his motion-activated security camera installed, monitoring the street outside his home. Well, on this particular day, the camera catches something very bizarre. The camera begins recording as Mike's wife pulls into their garage, but the footage is digitally distorted. It's so pixelated that it almost looks like the camera is damaged or receiving some serious interference. But notice the strange figure walking down the sidewalk, and then the video clears for one brief frame to reveal this. For just an instant, we see clear footage of something that appears to be right out of a horror movie. It looks like some misshapen thing with a long nose and a tiny head, dressed in very bizarre clothing. Now, as I mentioned, there is heavy distortion in the clip, but it seems very odd that the person or thing in the video seems to be much more distorted than the surroundings. Mike says that his surveillance camera has never malfunctioned before this clip, and has never malfunctioned since. This is the only time this ever happened. So, what do you think? Is this simply digital distortion rearranging the features of an average person? Could it be someone wearing a mask? And either way, why does this odd glitch only occur right as this person enters the frame? Is it a witch, a creature, a thing, or simply digital distortion? Let me know what you think. The Cage. Now, this next clip already appeared in a top 5 list on this channel a year ago, but no top 5 list of witches caught on camera would be complete without it. In fact, this is probably one of the creepiest paranormal videos I've ever seen. So, in the small town of St. Osyth in Essex, UK, there is a very old abandoned prison called The Cage. The prison is unique in that for over 400 years, it served as a jail to confine and execute women convicted of witchcraft. Paranormal researcher Brian Mack and his crew went to the site to perform an investigation into the supposed supernatural activity in the prison. While there, the crew said that they heard strange footsteps and whispers. Lights turned on and off by themselves, and members of the crew were bitten or pinched by something that they couldn't see. The experience was so frightening that some crew members actually refused to continue with the investigation. But the creepiest and most bizarre experience of all came when Brian Mack's team attempted to perform a seance, while Brian observed from the other room.
Face has completely changed, doesn't even look like a person.
Right, Debbie, you need to come down here for a minute, please.
Oh, weird. My eyes went black.
As the seance begins, one of the women's face seems to transform and contort in a horrifying way. Her nose seems to grow and her mouth curves into a bizarre, inhuman grin.
Face has completely changed, doesn't even look like a person.
Right, Debbie, you need to come down here for a minute, please.
Oh, weird. My eyes went black.
The researchers become worried and call the woman out of the room. It was later found that even though the woman had been wearing several layers of thick clothing, she had a bizarre burn mark down the back of her neck. After the investigation, the woman says that she had horrible nightmares and experienced strange things around her home. So was this woman possessed by the spirit of a witch? Or is it all just a trick of the light and the camera angle? A very, very bizarre trick. Let me know what you think.